All right, Tough to Bear kicks off this Bears Now mailbag. I'm Harrison Graham. He says, if the Browns fired Kevin Stefanski, how high would he be on your list? I talked to our Browns report host guy, and I said, is there any chance they still fire him? Because there was a report like a month ago, they're not going to fire him, yada, yada, yada. They've looked pretty bad the last few weeks, and there's a chance they go 3-14. I get it. He can't control the Deshaun Watson thing and all that stuff, but I do wonder if there's a chance they pivot. If he became available, he'd be pretty high on my list. I mean, I'd probably still lean Ben Johnson over him, but this guy's done the job. He's done it for a dysfunctional franchise. He's won a playoff game and gone to the playoffs a second time with that franchise. Like, that's not nothing. This is the Cleveland Browns, so he'd probably be my number 2 or number 3 guy. He'd be pretty high on my list if he became available. What say you? Who will be the next Bears head coach? Predict what's going to happen. Not what you want, but what you think is going to happen down in the comment section below. All right, Lacora, why isn't Poles thinking about the franchise's offensive line for the past couple years? Does he need to be fired after the 2025 season if he doesn't upgrade at that position? Well, see, that's what concerns me. It's like he's got 1 year left, so you either need to commit to him long term since you're hiring a new coach. I don't think having a lame duck GM makes sense. Or you need to get rid of him after this season. It'd be hard to say that you trust him to rebuild this offensive line. The biggest move he's made in free agency was Nate Davis, and there was a report a couple weeks ago that people within the organization pushed back on that decision because of bad practice habits he had in Tennessee. Oh, shocker, that happened here too, and he was even worse of a player. At least in Tennessee, he was good. Darnell Wright was a good pick. Braxton Jones in the 5th round was good value, but there has not been enough investment, and the investment that's been made hasn't hit often enough. So it's a tough needle to thread. I don't think this Poles, he's just coming back thing is for sure done. I think there's still evaluating happening. DC Viper, should the Bears sit Caleb the rest of the season to protect him from injury? I don't think so. Now, I will say this. Braxton Jones out for the season. Tevin Jenkins on a short week against Seattle. I don't really expect him to play. So who plays on the left side of the offensive line? Is it Larry Borum, Jake Curran again? Do you give Karan Amagaji another look? I don't know about that. So I think you got to keep playing him, though. He's coming off a strong game. I don't think this is not the reason to play him, but I do think him reaching some certain metrics, I think that's something worth playing for. At this point, so I would keep playing him, but I do understand, like, if he suffered an injury in some meaningless game down the stretch here, I mean, that would be pretty brutal too. Subscribe to the channel. We got videos all year long. Doesn't matter if it's during the season, the off season, the dead parts of the off season. Coverage never stops. Daily content here on this channel. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and if you want to be a part of these mailbags, every Monday and Thursday live at 4 o'clock Central. DJ, how fast do you think the Bears will hire a new head coach? Well, it depends. Like, if Ben Johnson's their top guy and the Lions are in the Super Bowl, they can't hire him until the Super Bowl's over. So I would say the earliest. When does the season end? Let me just look at my calendar here. It's a week from this next Sunday, so that would be January 5th. So January 6th is Black Monday. That's when a lot of teams will fire coaches. A couple GMs will get fired, all that stuff. I mean, I would guess at the earliest you're probably looking at like the 20th. I mean, I would think it's going to take at least a couple weeks just to conduct interviews, go through that process. I would say somewhere between January 20th and 2 days after the Super Bowl, somewhere in that gap. That's probably what you're looking at. Rich M, I've been hearing more buzz on Bears drafting Jeanty or Skattebo. Thoughts on Jeanty in the first round or Scat later to pair with Swift? I mean, I think the rumors are just people online wanting Ashton Jeanty, but I don't think they'll take Jeanty in the first round. I don't think they should. Could that opinion change based on something crazy happening in free agency? I suppose, but I don't think I will change that opinion. And I love Jeanty, but I just think he got too many other needs. I do think taking it back in the middle rounds makes sense. I don't know where Skattebo will go. Excited to watch him against Texas this week, but he's a fun player. I do think as this season's gone on, DeAndre Swift is not an every down back. Let's just say you do get Ben Johnson. I think ideally DeAndre Swift is like your poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a guy you use on the perimeter in the pass game. You still want to get him 10 to 15 touches per game, but he's not a guy you consistently want to run between the tackles. And then you get a more physical downhill runner to be, whether it's your starter or number 2 Thunder Lightning combination, 1-2 punch to pair with Swift. I think that's kind of the ideal setup for Chicago. Bears Now is sponsored by Rocket Money. Listen, the holidays are here. A lot of us are spending money right now, but the whole entire year you got to stay on top of your finances, scale back on your spending. And Rocket Money, the best personal finance app out there, is going to help you do that, as you can find and cancel any subscriptions you no longer want, monitor your overall spending, and help lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Most Americans believe that they are spending $62 per month on subscriptions. That number is closer to $300. Don't believe me? Sign up, sync up your bank account, because it'll list out all the subscriptions you have, and you'll be shocked at how much per month you're spending. Whether you signed up for a streaming service on a free trial, you've been getting charged ever since, or you might realize, oh, I'm not even using this. Let's get those canceled. A few clicks later, you can get rid of those, and you're no longer paying for them. Rocket Money will deal with the customer service so you don't have to. You can lower bills by up to 20%. Just upload a photo of your bill to the Rocket Money app, and they will do the rest for you. Try to find the best deal available. Go to rocketmoney.com/Bears now to take advantage of all of Rocket Money's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions at rocketmoney.com/Bears now. Link is in the comments and in the description of this video. We got Phillip, my guy Phillip. If Ben Johnson is hired as head coach, who would you like to see as an OC in DC? Let's go DC first. I think Robert Saleh would be a guy I'd be interested in. Dennis Allen, another guy. Two guys that have been head coaches before, but probably just shouldn't be head coaches moving forward, especially Dennis Allen, but are proven defensive coordinators. And they've held the head coach job before, so they could be a resource for Ben Johnson in that regard. So I like that idea. I'm sure there are other names I will look into and consider. As far as OC, a couple ideas have come to mind. The offensive line coach for Detroit, if you could bring him over, I think his name's Hank Fraley, give him an OC title. A, he can help your offensive line, and B, he's not calling plays, so I'm not too worried about that, but he can help with some of the game planning with Ben Johnson. So I like that idea. If your head coach is the play caller, you're not going to get like these sexy names to be your offensive coordinator. Could Eric Bieniemy fit that mold? Maybe he's your running backs coach / OC without the play calling. I don't know if there's any connection at all with Johnson and Bieniemy, because again, when these guys fill out their coaching staffs, typically it's guys they have connections to. So keep that in mind. Dennis, the Chicago kid, what players are on the trade block and who holds what value? Could we get a third for Edmonds? I don't think so. But with his contract, he just has not played up to that. Now, if he was making TJ Edwards money, could you get him for a third? Or could you get a third for him? Maybe, because that's a very tradable contract. He makes $18 million a year, and he's playing like a $6-7 million. Like, if you flipped TJ and Tremaine's contracts, that would make more sense based on the production. Now, TJ would still be overpaid, but I think that's one of the more egregious things Poles has done. I didn't really have a huge problem with trading Roquan. It's like, okay, full rebuild. You don't want to pay an off-ball linebacker $20 million. Okay, no problem. But to turn around and then pay a different off-ball linebacker $18 million, which is 90% of the contract Roquan got, he's not 90% of the player Roquan is. He's maybe half the player. So it's I don't think there's a big trade market there. If anything, you'd have to cut him, which probably means you'll bring him back next year, because financially you don't really save money until the year after. So I would guess he's back for a third season here. As far as other guys on the trade block, I think Tyreek Stevenson's the wild card. Whoever gets brought in here, does that coach want to deal with him? Are they willing to work with him and see if he can mature? I still believe in his talent, but this year has really fallen off the rails for him, so he'd be a name to watch. I don't really know beyond that, to be honest. I think all the Bears' good players that would have trade value are guys you're going to want to bring back or are free agents, like Keenan Allen and Tevin Jenkins. So I'd have to think about it a little more. Predict the score of Thursday Night Football. We got the Bears and Seahawks at Soldier Field. Who wins? What's the final score going to be? The Bears, if they do win, A, they avoid a 10-game losing streak, and B, pretty much would end Seattle's season. Because if the Rams won on Sunday, Seattle would be out. So opportunity to at least play spoiler this week. Dennis, what is the biggest need, defensive tackle or left tackle in the draft? If left tackle, Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell? Interesting you're asking about left tackle. If you're watching live here on Monday, we're actually about to do a segment of left tackle options for next year. If you're watching this later in the week, that video is probably already out, so subscribe and go check it out. I think I'm leaning Banks over Campbell right now. I thought Campbell had a better year last year than he did yet this year. I still really like him, but I think I'm leaning Banks, but I like both. I think any offensive line is going to be my answer right now. You need defensive line help, no question about it, but I think protecting Caleb has to be a bigger priority. Coco Monkey, how many and what free agents do you think would be good for the Bears? I mean, how many? I don't know how many players they'll sign. In terms of like legitimate starters, I don't know. You probably want to sign 4 to 6 starters between your offense and defense. You know, I'd say 3 to 4, at least 2 to 4 trenches players that can start, and maybe a couple other spots, depending on what the rest of your roster looks like, if you make any cuts or trades at notable spots. So, I'd say 4 to 5 starters, and then you looking at a few more in the draft. Like I tweeted this out the other day, based on your 22 opening day starters to start this season. I mean, think about guys you have to replace, like Nate Davis. Like Matt Pryor's not the long-term answer, so like that's for sure one. I would guess at minimum 1 more offensive lineman, probably 2 more, maybe even 3. There's a chance you have 4 new stars in the offensive line. Let's say it's 3. So you've got that. If you let Keenan Allen walk, you may not have to spend big money, but you probably have to get a number 3 receiver because the Bears clearly don't think that's Tyler Scott. So that's 4 on the offensive side from a starting standpoint. Defense, I think you're going to need at least 1 more defensive lineman, so that's 5. Let's say it's 2, so that's 6. Do you need a corner? Do you need probably a safety with this Brisker situation? So you're probably looking between the draft and free agency, probably 6 to 7 new starters on this team next year, or at least like high-level backups like insurance for Brisker. Like is Jonathan Owens that? I didn't mind the signing, but he's gotten exposed in recent weeks. So, yeah, I think you're going to have to look at some real upgrades on this roster. All right, follow us on social media at HGramNFL. That's where you can find me. DMs are open. Still got to catch up on some from the last game. Same on Instagram at HGramNFL. Give me a follow. Daily content on those platforms. Plus, DMs are open. So we appreciate you guys tuning in here on Chicago Bears Now.